All right, everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going deep on Canadian politics.
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
It is. It is. So Justin Trudeau is stepping down.
Huge news.
It is. It really is. And potentially this is going to be like a whole new era for Canadian politics, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
when a leader like that steps down, you always know things are going to change, but the question is, what direction are they going to go in?
Exactly. And we've got some really interesting articles here that you sent over about, what this all means,
Yeah.
especially with this guy, Pierre Poilievre, who seems to be, waiting in the wings.
Yeah, he's definitely a rising star in the Conservative Party, and he's got a very different vision for Canada than Trudeau did.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack all of that today for you. So to kick things off,
Yeah.
Trudeau, when he left, he didn't really mince words about this guy.
No, he did not.
He basically said that Poilievre's vision doesn't make sense for Canadians,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to climate change.
Right. And, that statement right there, that's kind of a clue.
Yeah.
It's a clue into the big differences between these two guys and their approaches to leadership.
It's like a mic drop on the way out the door, right?
Exactly.
So what's your take on that? Like, what's the context?
Well, I think it's important to understand that Trudeau and the Liberal Party
Yeah.
have been facing some challenges, politically speaking.
He's had a long run.
They have, and they're a center-left party.
Yeah.
And there's this sense that the pendulum might be swinging back
To the right.
to the right, exactly. And the Conservative Party, which is where Poilievre comes in, they're on that right side of the spectrum.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and I think that's really important context for people to understand.
Absolutely.
So now let's talk about Pierre Poilievre.
Okay.
This guy has been called like a right-wing firebrand.
Yeah, that's a pretty common label for him.
Yeah, and he responded to Trudeau stepping down by saying it's a dark chapter and urging Canadians to take back control.
Yeah, strong word.
Really strong words. So what does that tell us? What are the implications of that?
I mean, his language is definitely powerful, and it's connecting with people.
Yeah.
I think when he says dark chapter, he's tapping into those feelings that some voters have,
Frustration.
Yeah, frustration, maybe like things aren't going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And this whole take back control idea, it's very populist.
It feels very familiar.
Very familiar. We've seen it in other countries where people feel like they've lost their voice and they want to, regain control over their lives and their country.
Okay, but take back control of what? Like, what specifically are we talking about here?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, you sent me some of his campaign stuff, and wow, it's different.
Oh, it's totally different. It's like night and day compared to Trudeau's platform.
Yeah, so what are some of his big points?
So one of his big things is taxes. He wants to reduce taxes, specifically income taxes, and that carbon tax that's been a big issue in Canada.
Yeah.
He argues that if you cut taxes, people will have more money.
Right.
They'll spend it. It'll boost the economy.
The classic conservative talking point, right?
It is, but it resonates with a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially those who feel overtaxed.
Right, so less taxes. What else?
Immigration is another one. He's very vocal about wanting to control immigration more.
Okay, in what way?
Well, he's talking about stricter limits on how many people come into Canada each year.
Okay.
And he wants to make sure that the immigrants who do come in have skills that will benefit the Canadian economy.
Okay, so that's immigration, and then what else?
Well, he's also a big proponent of fiscal responsibility.
So like less spending.
Exactly. He wants to cap government spending.
Okay.
And he's really pushing this Canada First idea,
Okay.
which signals a more nationalist approach to policy, putting Canada's interests front and center.
And that's a huge contrast with Trudeau,
Yeah.
who is very much like, global citizen.
Exactly. Trudeau is all about international cooperation, multilateral trade deals, climate accords.
The UN.
Yeah, all of that. Poilievre seems to be signaling a shift away from that more inward looking.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And, it makes me think about climate change specifically.
Yeah.
Trudeau made that like a cornerstone of his whole thing.
He did. It was front and center in his policies and his messaging.
Yeah, and Poilievre is like...
Not so much.
Not so much, yeah.
He's expressed doubts about how serious the issue is and how much it'll cost to fix it.
So, he's saying he wants to get rid of the carbon tax.
Right, and that's a huge point of contention.
Because environmentalists are like, no, no, no.
Yeah, they're very worried about the potential rollback of environmental protection.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this really stark contrast
We do.
between these two visions for Canada. But is any of what Poilievre's saying,
Yeah.
like, is it resonating with people?
It is. I mean, you look at the polls, And his popularity has been steadily climbing, and there's a real chance he could be the next prime minister.
Wow.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting because he's got some pretty high-profile international support.
Okay, like who are we talking about?
Well, how about Elon Musk?
Elon Musk, really?
Yeah, he's tweeted support for Poilievre a couple of times.
That's a big deal.
It is, I mean, Musk is a controversial figure.
Yeah.
But he's also a global icon, particularly in the tech world.
For sure.
So for him to come out and support Poilievre, even if it's just a tweet, it sends a signal.
What kind of signal are we talking
Well,
about?
it suggests that Poilievre could shake things up on the world stage.
Oh, okay.
It might make some international partners a little nervous.
Yeah.
But it also might attract investors and entrepreneurs who see Poilievre as someone who can make Canada a leader in innovation.
Okay, so huge potential changes on the horizon.
Yeah, big changes.
So what does this all mean for Canada on the world stage?
It's hard to say for certain, but it's safe to say that a Poilievre government would have a significant impact.
Okay, how so?
Well, for one, his more nationalist stance could lead to Canada rethinking its role in all those international organizations that Trudeau was so keen on.
Right, right.
His economic policies, like tax cuts and deregulation, those might attract foreign investment,
Yeah,
but they could also lead to worries about the country's finances down the road.
long-term stability.
Exactly. And then there's his stance on climate change,
Right.
which could create tension with some of Canada's closest allies who are pushing for stronger action on that front.
So just to kind of recap here, we've got Trudeau's departure.
Yeah.
We've got Poilievre with a completely different vision for Canada.
Yep.
And a whole lot of unknowns about what happens next.
It's a pivotal moment for sure.
Huge, yeah. And I think you've given us a lot to think about.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have one final question for you.
Okay, shoot.
Given Poilievre's connection to guys like Elon Musk
Yeah.
and his whole focus on economic nationalism,
Right.
how might that impact Canada's role in the world when it comes to technology and innovation? It's the big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah, and it's one that I think we're going to have to grapple with in the years to come.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, everyone, thank you so much for diving deep with us today, and keep those brains buzzing.
Always keep thinking.
See you next time.